Good morning. Welcome. It's always good to be here in this place. We start a new series this week, and it's entitled Whole. And the whole idea of the series Whole is about, we've just done a series, we've come out of a series called Follow, what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And if there's one thing that prevents us from being a follower of Jesus Christ, it's this worldview that we have as people that live in the Western world that we call consumerism. And so we want to unwrap this whole idea about consumerism and materialism. And it's really kind of unfortunate that we start the series on consumerism on the weekend of Mother's Day. That wasn't meant to happen. I don't think it was planned. But just on Mother's Day, here's the deal. Just for a real quick kind of overview of what consumerism might be. If you treat your mother with honor all through the year, and tomorrow you celebrate Mother's Day, then the reality is that you love and you honor your mother. That's the reality. However, unfortunately, we have an epidemic in this country where most women who are mothers are not honored and are not treasured throughout the year. As a matter of fact, the very opposite happens, where domestic violence is rampant, where abuse is rampant, and we are celebrating Mother's Day tomorrow, and many people who don't honor their mother all through the year will honor her tomorrow. And tomorrow, that mother will experience what we might call a hyper reality. It's not real. And consumerism kind of fuels this idea, and it gets us to live in a situation that isn't real. It's a made-up reality. So I hope that every single mother that is in this church will experience tomorrow as if it's a reality for their life. Not that it's just a hyper-reality for the day, because that's our issue, and that's the thing that we want to talk about. I remember when I was young, and maybe you can think back to the very first time that you received a thing, some stuff, something, a gift or whatever it was that just made you feel really good. Just really good. Can you remember? I must have been around 3 or 4 years old. I remember it was Easter time, and it's the first gift that I can remember receiving, and it's the first time I can remember that there was such a thing as Easter, where I really felt excited about the gift, and it was this. It was this plastic boat. I don't know if you guys remember, they used to sell these things, and in them they put an Easter egg. So I couldn't find a picture with an Easter egg, but this was the boat. And when I found the boat, there was just a little skippy thing happening in my heart, because I was like, man, I remember that boat. And I remember all day, the Easter egg wasn't the big deal, it was the boat. And I'd play with the boat in the bath, and my brother also got a boat. And we just, the boat was awesome. I remember playing in the gutter with the boat. Back in the day, we had gutters where water would run, and so you play in the gutter with the boat. I remember that was an awesome thing. The first gift that I can remember. Fast forward a few years, and I'm in intermediate school, and everybody in Christchurch rides a bike because it's flat. So everybody has a bike. And my dad used to work in a bike factory where they would assemble bikes. And one day, for my birthday, he bought me home a bike, and it was a cruiser. I don't know if you guys remember bikes like that, but it was a cruiser, and I thought, man, that's a pretty cool bike. I liked it. On that bike, we did a 50-mile bike ride on that bike. Look at it. It doesn't even have proper brakes. It doesn't even, the brakes were those kind of brakes you just push back on the back pedal. Well, we did a 50-mile bike ride over the Port Hills. If you know the Port Hills in Christchurch, they're kind of steep, into Diamond Harbour and then back again to Christchurch. I think Phil was on that bike ride. Certainly his uncle was leading it. And we were riding this bike, and I was on that cruiser. And it was just no problem. But it was a problem when I think about it, because it's a really dodgy bike. But we were able to do that back in those days. And I was really happy with the bike until My mate Solomon got one of these. That there, people, that is the diggity, diggity, doggy, diggity of bicycles. That there is a chopper. It's a chopper bike. I mean, he got the chopper and I had a cruiser. And where I used to be happy, I wasn't that happy. Because look at that thing. It's like got a gear stick. It's like got 4 on the floor. This is at a time when cars didn't have, all the cars were like column shift. And this bike has that thing, gear stick. And I was looking at that bike and I looked at my bike and I thought, oh, man. Fast forward a few more years. And I remember I'm getting my first car. And it was my mum and dad's, and there it is. It was my mum and dad's old Morris Hoxford. And I bought it for like, I think it was $300. I think it was what I paid for it. The thing was a tank, but I was overjoyed because I had a car. And it was just great having a car. And that lasted a few months. And then my eye caught this thing. Some of you guys may remember this. It had a bit more grunt. It's a Mark III Cortina, and there it is. And it was slightly modified. I mean, it had extractors on it, and it had mags, and it was just a cool car. And with the boys, we'd go to the beach, and I was once again really happy with my car. A few years later, there were company cars, and I don't know, but I used to dream about one day being in a position where I could have a company car, and there was my first kind of company car, a Vacationer, Commodore, and it was either a Commodore or a Falcon. That was my favorite company car that I ever had, an XR6 Falcon, and that was really cool. And the cars, they just got better, and they just got better, and they just got better. As a matter of fact, I almost found myself, shock horrors, kind of identifying myself with whatever vehicle I was driving at the time. And this is kind of what was happening. And then, I don't know if you remember cell phones when they first came out, but I remember when these puppies came out in the 80s, and I can remember going, oh, I would love one of those, because I think the TV series at the time was, I can't remember those two cops, what's it? Chips? No, the other guys. Miami Vice, yeah. The Miami Vice boys would just swagger along, and they'd have those cool jackets and pants that didn't match their jackets, and then they'd just whip out a phone, and that was it. And I was like, man, I've got to have one of those. And then I got a job where I got one of those, which looked even better and cooler. And of course now, where technology is, we just have just a proliferation of really, really cool stuff. I remember wanting one of almost everything that you see on the screen, and guess what? I've probably achieved most of that. And of course, the desire for products and technology, which we call materialism, has marched progressively upward and onwards since the brick, to the point where the latest gadget isn't just a wish or a nice to have, but for many today, if you don't have the thing, it actually says something about you as a person. In other words, we live in a world where our happiness, our identity is actually measured by what we have, by what we do, and where we live, as opposed to who we are. The classic greeting, when I meet somebody for the first time, after the sort of, hey, nice to see you here, and it's great, and you're enjoying yourself, yeah. The very next two questions are this. You can probably guess what they are. So, where are you from? And as soon as they tell me, I'm like, all right. And then the very next question is what? What do you do? Where are you from? What do you do? And if you're Samoan, they ask, what's your name? That's very important. Now, for me, what I've experienced, because my name is Saifoloi, it's not a very common Samoan name. I go, my name is, it's not like Ryan, and it's not like Tau, which are really famous names. And where people go, ooh, and then they start making all the connections, between our families, and maybe there, and basically, what can I get out of you? And when I die, if they come to my funeral, I'll get more money for the, all that sort of stuff. When I say, and they say, what's your name? I say, Saifoloi. They go, oh, nice to meet you. Thank you very much. See you later on. And they walk off and they go and find Ricky and ask what his name is. This whole deal of this worldview that we have about how to be happy. Taking it one step further, we live in a materialistic world. By the way, a lot of this information, and I forgot, I'll say this right now, a lot of this information that I'm sharing with you actually comes from Brendan Pratt. I rang Brendan Pratt a few months ago and said, hey, listen, the guys want to do like a series on consumerism, and I hear you're the dude, so can you send me some stuff? He sent me a 12-page workshop on consumerism, which was pretty cool. And I said, have you got any more information? And he sent me a 45-page thing, and I thought that was the doctorate, because Brendan's doing a doctorate on consumerism and how it impacts Christianity. And he sent me this, and I thought, man, he sent me his doctorate, 45 pages. You know what? That wasn't even the doctorate. That was just the introduction, just the overview of his doctorate. So a lot of the information I'm sharing with you is Brendan's information. And if this is being videoed, Brendan might be horrified like how I've dumbed it down. But thank you, Brendan. Much appreciated. But taking it one step further, we live in a materialistic world where time equals money, which equals things, which equal happiness. In other words, if I've got time, I should be using that time to make money, and the reason why I should be using that time to make money is because I've learned, and I kind of understood since I was 7 years old, which is kind of the statistic, we understand this from the age of 7, up to the age of 7, we understand that money buys things, and things will give me happiness. This is what we call a worldview. A worldview is simply if I had a pair of glasses up here, I'd put them on, and through that lens, I'd see all of you. So if I had black glasses and I put them on, you'd all look dark. If I had lighter glasses and I put them on, you'd all look pink. And this is what we call a worldview. It's how you view the world. And right now, in our Western society, this is how we view the world, that time equals money, and we say it a lot, time is money. Anyone ever said that? Hands up. Hey, time is money. Click, click, click. Time equals money because money equals things, and things equal happiness. Barna did some research, and Barna's the guy, the crowd that do research on Christian churches in the Western world and how they relate to the secular world. But he found this out, that 98% of those living in the Western world have this view of life. 98% of people live life this way, that time equals money, and money equals things, and things equal happiness. And that's a pretty cool thing to find out. What's disturbing is that they discovered that 95% of Christians who live in the Western world also have this point of view. Also, those of us who follow Jesus Christ also live like this, also believe that time equals money equals things equals happiness. It's a little more undercover. We mask it with a whole bunch of other things that we do, like missions and altruistic type language. But ultimately, the way that we decide what schools we'll send our kids to, what universities we'll attend, what careers we desire, are pretty much based on this very same thing, that time equals money equals things and equals happiness. What has happened over time in the Western world is that this worldview, if you like, has drastically changed the way that we find meaning and fulfillment in life. 50 years ago, the idea of God being the ultimate source of meaning in life was still prevalent. As a result of that type of worldview, church attendance was high. 50 years ago, the idea that people were more important than things meant that the weekend was sacred for families and friends, and shops wouldn't open, etc. 50 years ago, we may have viewed the world more like this, and that is that time equals people, which equals relationships, which equals happiness. I remember when we were kids, we used to, whenever we had spare time, we would go and visit somebody. Like, we'd just go visit somebody. And you didn't have to book an appointment. You didn't have to schedule the time. Nobody had to look up their diary and see if they had time for you. You just rock up. And we'd just hang. And mum and dad would talk to their people, and as kids, we'd just play and just run around, and it was awesome because time equaled people, and people meant relationships, and it was relationships that brought happiness. However, our fascination with material things has had such an impact that we are caught in a consumerism merry-go-round with no obvious way of escape. As a matter of fact, a relatively new term is now being used to describe consumerism in the 21st century, and it's called hyper-consumerism. Because added to consumerism and our need for stuff is this: we need it like now. It's not just we need it when it arrives, or we need it when, sometime in the future. We want our stuff, and we want it now. Hyper-consumerism, where materialism isn't just something we enjoy from time to time, but where materialism has become such a deep-seated value that we have developed a mindset called consumerism that has replaced God as our primary source from which we derive meaning. In other words, all the stuff that we have in this box is now the source of where we derive meaning in life. Used to be God. Churches used to be full because God was our primary source of meaning. But consumerism is this mindset that says that stuff is now our primary source of meaning. In other words, the Western world has rejected God as its primary source of meaning, replacing God with consumerism. As a result, we live in a world where the average family, check this out, owns 2.5 cars, and this is New Zealand figures, by the way, 2.2 TV sets, 2.1 mobile phones, 2.8 computers, and as a nation, we spend close to $7 billion on out-of-home meals. $7 billion on out-of-home meals. That, folks, is affluence. But does all this stuff really fill our needs like the advertising says? Does all that stuff that we've just talked about and is in our stuff box really fill our needs? Does it really equal happiness? Here's some worrying statistics. According to Mental Health New Zealand, 1 in 6 people in this country experience depression. 1 in 6 people experience depression. According to the World Health Organization, by 2020, depression will be the second most common cause of ill health and death. According to life.org, one of the biggest causes of depression amongst young people is the lack of social interaction and feelings of hopelessness. And the 3 most common mental health issues in the Western world: bipolar, schizophrenia, and obsessive-compulsive behavior. It is no surprise that feelings of anxiousness are driven by loneliness and fear. I'd like us to watch this video clip because I think it describes in 3 minutes the consumerism trap we find ourselves in. The gentleman's name, he's a celebrated academic, and his name is David Harvey, which is pretty cool, I thought. And he is trying to look beyond capitalism, which is an instrument for consumerism, towards a new social order. And he's asking the question, can we find a more responsible, just, and humane economic system? That's his question. David references a lot of language that came out of the financial disaster that happened a couple of years ago in the US and impacted countries in Europe and others. And if you don't really understand that stuff, that's cool because the pictures are really cool, and you'll get an idea of what he's talking about by the pictures that are being drawn. Don't worry about his obvious political bent. What I want you to maybe get the idea of is how this need for us to accumulate stuff, how it actually starts, how it actually works, and how it has become a trap that not even this acclaimed academic has an answer for. So let's watch it. Here we go.
And the simple way to look at it is to say, look, the typical circulation process of accumulation goes like this. You start with some money, you go into the market and you buy labour, power and means of production, and you put them to work with a given technology and organisational form. You create a commodity which you then sell for the original money plus a profit. Now, you then take part of the profit and you recapitalise it into an expansion for very interesting reasons. Now, there are 2 things about this. One is there are a number of barrier points in here. How is the money got together in the right place at the right time in the right volume? And that takes financial ingenuity. So the whole history of capitalism has been about financial innovation. And financial innovation has the effect of also empowering the financiers. And the excessive power of the financiers can sometimes, they do get greedy, no question about it. And if you look at financial profits in the United States, they were soaring after 1990. They're going up like this. Profits in manufacturing were coming down like this. And you could see the imbalance. In this country, I think the way in which this country has sided with the City of London against British manufacturing since the 1950s onwards has had very serious implications for the economy of this country. You've actually screwed industry in order to keep, financiers happy. Any sensible person right now would join an anti-capitalist organisation. And you have to. Because otherwise we're going to have the continuation. And notice it's the continuation of all sorts of negative aspects. For instance, the racking up of wealth. You would have thought the crisis would have stopped that. Actually, more billionaires emerged in India last year than ever. They doubled last year. The wealth of the rich, I just read something this morning, in this country has accelerated. Just last year, what happened was the leading hedge fund owners got personal remunerations of $3 billion each in 1 year. Now, I thought it was obscene and insane a few years ago when they got 250 million. But they're now hauling in 3 billion. Now, that's not a world I want to live in, and if you want to live in it, be my guest. I don't see us debating and discussing this. I don't have the solutions. I think I know what the nature of the problem is, and unless we're prepared to...
I found that interesting, that a leading academic would say that he doesn't know what the answer is, that he doesn't have the solution. He's simply echoing our society. At the end of the video, he says that as academics, we need to have a hand in changing our mode of thinking, which is exactly what Paul says in Romans chapter 12. So what is the answer to this need, this drive to accumulate stuff? You see, the tricky thing is that much of this drive comes from our Puritan heritage, the origins of Western Christianity, where hard work is highly valued. If you can remember the story of how people came from England in boat, came to America, they were called the Puritans, and they started a new life. Hard-working people. Of course, the benefits of hard work is that you produce commodities, and the more you produce, the wealthier you become. This is, of course, seen as a blessing from God, which it is, but the Bible says something about us humans and about our human nature. Namely, that our hearts deceive us continually, so that our prayers for God's blessing and bounty, which He longs to give us, by the way, really becomes a consumerism trap that we know of today as the health and wealth gospel, and we use materialism as a way to show the world why they should become Christians, and it's all just getting a little bit icky. And the issue, of course, with that is that 95% of Christians live by the same view that the world has of time equals money, equals things, equals happiness. Of course, as Christians who believe that Jesus is the answer, maybe we would say to this academic that, hey, listen, Jesus is the answer for the world today. Does God, through His Word, have an answer to this? And it turns out that He does. But what I'm discovering is that it's not so much academic answers that God proffers for our society, but He gives us a way to live as an antidote to this thing that we call consumerism. And His answer to consumerism is synonymous with His answer to what it means to be whole, to what it means to live a life that is fully fired up life, where you are doing exactly what your heart and soul tell you that you ought to be doing, where you're doing exactly what your skills and your giftings are geared towards, living a whole life where you are experiencing something deeper than happiness, but what the Bible calls joy. Living a whole life where no matter what is happening around you, above you, under you, that you have a deep sense of peace. That His answer is synonymous with what it means to be whole, to have a life filled with meaning regardless of the pattern of the world. And it all starts with your worldview. And your worldview is actually dependent on your view of God. Even those who don't believe in God have a worldview that starts with their worldview on God. And saying that I don't believe in God is a worldview of God. And so here's a couple of slides that show what our basic worldviews of God are and how it determines ultimately what our worldview is. First one is this. If you have this worldview, it's called an under God worldview. If you live with this worldview that you are under God, God being the triangle and you being the stick figure, people who live under God have a picture of God as just having lots of rules. They think that to get God's blessing, can you hear the consumerism coming in here? They think that to get God's blessing, you need to do all the right things. It's a way of trying to control God. Sadly, when things go wrong, as they will do, they blame God for not doing his part. This is an under God worldview. The second worldview is an over God worldview, and this worldview goes like this. If you have an over God worldview, you have a picture of God that is based on principles rather than a relationship. God gets taken out of the picture. The extreme of this is atheism. Christians with an over picture might believe that God exists. However, they do not think that he is interested in them. They might read the Bible and Christian books, but they are looking for principles rather than a relationship. Principles are important, but should not be our primary picture of God. An over God view. And then there's the from God view. Some people treat God as a big cosmic Santa Claus, who they don't really know or really care to know, but from whom they want good things from. This is the consumer picture of God, where God exists to give us things. Can anybody relate? Sure, God does bless us, and every good thing does come from him, but this is not the Bible's main picture of God. In the from God picture, you don't have to change your dreams. As a matter of fact, you don't have to change anything about how you live. You just get a version of God who will make what you want happen for you. This picture ends up consuming God, and in fact, God ends up existing to make us better consumers. And this is where I believe we fall into this trap of consumerism. It may not so much be about materialism for us as Christians. It may be more about how we're consuming God. It may be more about how we're consuming each other. Worldview number 4 about God. This is a for God picture. This picture is all about serving God. Serving God is important. However, if serving him becomes more important than being with him, the picture gets muddled. Some people get more excited about God's mission than about God himself. The gospel answer to all of this is the with God worldview. The Bible paints a picture of a God who wants to be with his people. Isaiah 43, 1-5 and Psalms 23, 1-4 are just some of the many passages in the Bible that describe God wanting to be with you. And let's read it. Let's read those passages. This is Isaiah 45, verse 1-5 from the Message. But now God's message, the God who made you in the first place, the one who got you started. Don't be afraid. I've redeemed you. I've called your name. You're mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be there with you. When you're in rough waters, you will not go down. When you're between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end, because I am God, your personal God, the holy God of Israel, your Savior. I paid a huge price for you. All of Egypt with rich Cush and Seba thrown in. That's how much you mean to me. That's how much I love you. I'd sell off the whole world to get you back. I would trade the creation just for you. So don't be afraid. I'm with you. I'll round up all your scattered children, pull them in from the east and the west. I'll send orders north and south. Send them back. Return my sons from distant lands, my daughters from faraway places. I want them back, every last one who bears my name, every man, woman, and child whom I created for my glory. Yes, personally formed and made them, each one. And in Psalms 23, verse 1-4, God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You notice? God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. If I have a worldview, a picture of you that is with a with picture of God. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid. When you walk at my side, when you're with me, I feel secure. This is the picture of God that the Bible has for us. God with us. So God's overarching antidote to consumerism, his complete answer to filling every need that you have, is to fill yourself with him. Funnily enough, you might say, God's answer to consumerism is to consume him. Is to consume him so that he lives in you. Because you want to be with God. Not because of what it might do for you, but because you want God with you. That's his answer. By taking self, represented by stuff, and nailing it to the cross, thereby awakening your desire for Christ. And this is where I really want to hone in and talk to you, church. Do you need your desire for Christ to be awakened? Because this is the antidote to consumerism. This is where we, as people who believe in Jesus Christ and want him to be with us, this is our answer to the academic. Do you need your desire for Christ to be awakened? Has your desire for Jesus Christ grown dormant? When was the last time, and I just really want you to think that, when was the last time that you spent quiet time with God, with Jesus? When was the last time that you, with a broken spirit, fell on your face and pleaded with God to be not beside you, not under you, not above you, but that you pleaded with God to be at the center of your life? How long has it been? And if it's been a while, and if you've found it difficult to find time to do this, can I suggest that it might be because there's stuff in the way? Can I suggest that maybe the last time you tried to do this and you ran out of time was because your schedule was too full because of stuff? Can you imagine what type of transformation could take place if we as a people decided to shift stuff out of the seat of control, place it in the cross, and let Jesus take his rightful place in the center of our lives? Can you imagine this ecclesia, this called out people for a special purpose that we call Papster, being a place where selfishness no longer exists? Can you imagine this place being a place where I have more concern for you than I have for me? And that you have more concern for me than you have for you? Can you imagine what could happen? Where we have a community that is truly inclusive because we did first things first, namely placing Jesus at the center of our lives. Most communities are communities, but they're exclusive. Churches are no different. I've got to admit, when I first came to Papster, I came because I like stuff here. And I just felt people kind of rolled like me. So this is a great place, to be. But if we think about it, inclusive community is something that is rare, because inclusive community requires my concern for you to be more than my concern for myself. I'm really excited about what that picture could look like. And people outside these walls would see it, because it would be unique. It's not happening anywhere else, where people have more concern for others than they have for themselves. And they would wonder at it, and they would wish they could experience it. And we'd offer to do life with them, both inside and outside of these walls. Listen to a wonderful speaker who for years has been growing and bringing people to Christ. We got the privilege of listening to him on Friday. Just a spirit-filled, God-ordained man, and has brought so many people to Christ. And he talks about this idea that right now, and you can do this for yourself, right now I'm here. Wherever here is for you. And here might be where you have this worldview that time equals money, which equals things, which equals happiness. Or you might have this worldview about God where you're with God because of what hopefully he can do for you. And maybe that's where you are, and we call that here. And then he challenges us to think about what there looks like. That we're here, but we need to get to there. And there for me looks like Acts chapter 2. Where are we? See, as Papster, we're here, and Acts chapter 2 is there. And he talked about creating this holy kind of desire to no longer be satisfied with here, but to want to go to there. And if you're sitting here at Papster and you think, no, I kind of like it here, even though there looks like that, but I'm comfortable with here, then there's a good chance that you'll find out over the next 4 weeks that you may be caught in the consumerism trap. How do we get from here to there? My challenge, simple but hard, because as you think about doing this week, you're going to have to move stuff out of the way to do it. And my challenge is this: have some solitude with God. I'm talking about alone time with God. I challenge myself as I challenge you. I'm not talking about just doing a Bible study and ticking off the questions. I'm talking about quiet time. I'm talking about a time where you can get away and recalibrate. And do it every day this week. Beware the motivation. If you're like me, you're straight away going, yep, I better do it so that God can bless me. That's not relationship. That might be consumerism. And how? Here's how I'd like to propose that we do that. And put on this new worldview. And it goes like this. Spending time with God equals relationship, which equals joy. Joy, of course, being a deep sense of peace. You know, David Harvey, the celebrated academic, couldn't find an answer to the consumerism trap that we find ourselves in. But God gives us an answer. And over the series, over the next few weeks, this is our rallying cry. This is our rallying call as Jesus followers when it comes to living a life that's an antidote to consumerism. And it's found in Romans chapter 12. And what I'd like us to do today, and I'm not sure if the other guys are going to do it later on, but I'd like to set the pace for this rallying call. I'd like us to set the pace for this rallying call. And the words are up here, and I'm just wondering if we could stand and read it and get these words into our heart and soul, because this is the answer, I believe, to putting on a different set of glasses, to maybe having a different worldview from time equals money equals things equals happiness. Can we all stand and read this? Is that cool? I'm not going to conduct it, so you're just going to have to feel the flow. But let's read this together. 1, 2. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-informed maturity in you. Jesus at the center is what that's all about. Not letting yourself be swayed by the worldview that we live in. Not letting you be swayed by the zeitgeist that's all around us. Not being swayed by the pattern of the world. But as followers of Jesus Christ, holding to this belief that if we place Jesus at the center, not to the side, not as an add-on, but at the center of every single thing we do, that maybe we can live a life that's not governed by stuff, but we can live a whole life. Jesus. Lord, it's tough putting on a new set of glasses. It's tough taking off an old world view and putting on a gospel view that asks us to seriously consider putting you at the center of our lives. Lord, it's a tough thing to do because often what we want clashes with what you want. And so our simple prayer this week, Lord, and I just pray that we can pray a prayer like this every day of this week when we have solitude time with you, that we can pray that we want to want what you want. Some of us actually don't want what you want because we want what we want. But Lord, may we at least have the ability to pray that we want to have what you want, that you would give us the desire to want what you want. May we put you at the center of our lives this week and continue to do it over and over and over again so that we can wear a new set of glasses. This is my prayer in your name. Amen.